Hello and welcome to another video from MicroStrategy Rooster. Today's topic will be a schema object creation for facts. We're going to create a fact in MicroStrategy. We're going to talk about the different properties and the different ways that the SQL will be generated using a fact. Now just a brief discussion around what is a fact and how it's used. Well, facts are the building blocks or the basic units for a metric. So a metric is an operation on a fact, such as the typical one or the default is the sum of a column. For instance, let's take a look at revenue. For instance, it's a MicroStrategy tutorial. So what do you typically see? You will see a few columns and map to a few tables. Okay, so this is the column or the multiple columns used in an expression to define. You don't see anything like sum or average here. We're not doing any aggregation, we're not formula. This is just the mapping layer. In the metric is where so if we look at a dependent on fact, the metric is where you would, let's see, average revenue. The metric is where you would see that formula, average or sum of the fact, okay? So that's how facts are used. Facts are the mapping layer underneath the metric. Okay, so let's create a new one. New fact. There isn't a lot of properties for facts, so we're going to go over them pretty quickly. So let's pick a table, and then you pick a column that you want to create a fact on that you want to use in a metric. Let's create this one. I'm going to use manual. I prefer to choose them manually than automatic, which means which tables will this come from. Okay, go. It brings it from a lot of tables. Let's just say I want to define it on one of these tables. Select that table and I'm good to go. So I can save and close, and now I have a fact mapped to this year's category sales. Before I save that, let me show you a couple of things. One is the column alias. This will define the column, the default column that this is coming from. You can select a different name or create a different or a new alias. Where does this play a factor? Nowhere really, other than in the SQL, which means it makes it easier for you to debug it and understand where your facts are coming from. If you have multiple facts with similar column names and you want to see when your SQL generates which one is actually being pulled and where, so it's for debugging, you can use different ones. If you don't have that need and your report is not complicated, just stick with the default alias, which is the column name. Alright, and the other thing I wanted to show you quickly is the ability to create a heterogeneous mapping, meaning here I had one coming from this table, but my column can also exist in another table under a new name or a different name. So what do? I create a new, and let's say gross dollar sales also came from inventory, or sorry, I need a sales, and it was called total dollar sales. Again, this might not be correct for this data set. You have to know your data, but I'm just hypothetically saying, what if gross dollar sales from year category sales was also had a column called total dollar sales from quarter category sales. So what you're saying here is that the metric which computes gross dollar sales can either use this column from this table or this column from this table. This is heterogeneous mapping, okay? Again, this is data set specific. This example that I'm using right here probably is not correct. These two do not mean the same thing, but if you had a situation where two different column names were mapped to the same type of data, in this case gross dollars, and can be used can be mapped both at the same time for a metric to choose one or the other depending on the other facts on the table or attributes on the table, then you can do a heterogeneous mapping, so it's okay. The third thing you can do is create an expression. Now with expressions you got to be careful. The expression has to include columns from within the same table. So you first select the table and then you say gross dollars divided by total cost. Okay, you can do something even more and go, okay, this divided by that plus 1. Okay, validate. That's good. Now look, if I tried to do this plus and go to another table and select total this, all right, and then validate. Okay, it'll allow me to do that in some cases. Okay, so you can also heterogeneously map depending on where your tables are coming from. Okay, now what if I wanted to do another thing like plus monthly sales, and I did total cost. Okay, and then I try to save. Look what it says. Those expressions will be lost. If you want to preserve a fact, make sure you have at least one source table. Why? Because for this expression, I didn't tell it where to come from. And this is the tricky part. So now let's look at this. Let's say I wanted to come from this table. Look at the error I got. I have expressions from multiple tables, which means I cannot do this operation. It's only going to let you select a table that includes all of them, okay? And now you can save. If you select a table that includes some of them but not all of them, it'll give you an error. There we go. Alright, so I think we modified one attribute, one metric here. It's okay, just for demo purposes. Alright. There it is. There it is. 3/9/2014. Alright. So that's the metric, the fact that we created, and we can embed it in a metric and use it, etc. So you saw we created facts and we created expressions for multiple facts. There's one more thing that I want to talk about, which is the extension. But let's create a new fact for this guy. We'll delete this one. And let's create, let's look here, do we see, okay, let's reuse this. Let's see, where's this coming from? So select for components, and I'm going to edit the table just to take a look at it. Okay, this table is used for the revenue target. It has a bunch of attributes. 3 of them are key: month, call center, and subcategory. It has year, quarter, region, but it doesn't have day. Okay, so what does this mean? That means this metric, based on the fact that the revenue target fact can aggregate all these levels. All right, we don't see day here, so I'm going to show you what happens when you try to use it with day. So let me look at the dependence again. There's the metric that this fact uses. Remember, you can't place a fact, you can only place a metric on a report. So I'm going to use that fact by embedding that metric, revenue target, this one, onto my report. Okay, so I'm going to drag it here, put it here. Alrighty. Now I'm also going to add a dimension, the month, because I saw it used there. So I saw it mapped to the same table. So I'm expecting a very neat and simple SQL here. If I don't, there's something wrong. Okay, so let's look at SQL. Alrighty. So what are we doing? Selecting month and its description from the revenue from this tutorial targets fact table, and it's also trying to join to get the different descriptions on the month ID. So don't worry about the description part, just worry about this. Okay, that it's bringing the fact table and the month from the revenue target from that fact table. Okay, so let's go back to this table. So I'm going to remove description just to make it simple and keep the ID. Alright, I'm just doing this to simplify the SQL when we look at it. So if we look at it again, I have to run it. Beautiful. Alrighty. So run it and SQL view. It still wants to bring the description, but I can do that actually from here until I get rid of this form. And now show me the SQL, and there it is. So I simplified it just to keep it for tutorial purposes or for demo purposes. So we have the month, the revenue from the fact, and grouped by the month. I'll save and close. I'll keep this guy called new report. I don't care about him. Alright, so here's our new report, but I want to edit it and add a date now. Now we know that the revenue target did not have a date level. So let's see what happens. Okay. Alright, I want to save this before I run it. And let's see what happens. Okay, we get an error. The error is saying that revenue target cannot be at the date level. Okay. Well, we knew that, right? So how do we resolve that? Let's say you do not have revenue target at the date level. It just does not exist in a fact table. But your business user wanted you to create a report which showed the date next to the month and also showed this metric. It could be for a reason that there's other metrics that need to be at the date level, but not necessarily this metric, but they all need to be on the same report. So there's ways to get around that with the fact extension. So let me close this. Let's go to our fact and do something with it called an extension. We'll create a new extension, and extension wizard will come up. So it'll say name the extension. If you care about the name, you call it, month to day. So I'm just going to go month to day. Lower the fact, extend the fact, and disallow the fact enter level. So what do you do here? You disallow, you say, okay, you block it, meaning that anytime day and month and this fact are on a table, just prevent that report from running. And this is if you're preventing users from creating the wrong kind of joins and errors. Or you can say lower it, meaning this only works the lower if the second attribute that you're lowering to, the day, and the first one are in a hierarchy. So day is the child of month. Or extend it if these two are not in the same hierarchy. The simplest one is lower. Let's go with lower, and I'll come back to the extend in a second. So we're saying which attribute will you like it to lower to? We want it to lower to day. Which attribute you want to join on? Typically, in this case, you want to go with the parent, but it's not always the case. Okay, but just for understanding it, you want to go from month to day. That's what we're trying to do. You could have a different design where you needed it to go from a different, for example, month to year to day instead. But that's going to depend on what attributes you have on your report at runtime. Because we know month is on that report and we want it to display next to the date, I'm going to go with month, the parent. This is saying, okay, month value will be displayed for day, or here if you double click or click, let's say for day or any of its children. Well, day doesn't happen to have any children, but let's say this was a quarter and you were extending it to month and you did the attribute and children, then it'll go extend quarter to month and day. So this is just saying this month to day or month to day in any of day's children. Okay, in this case it doesn't matter, but if it was if they had children, it would matter. Okay. Next, specifying expression, meaning do you want the metric for that fact to display the value that it displays for every month, for that month, same on every day, or do you want to do something with it? Okay, let's just keep it simple and keep it as basic as it can get. Okay, so here we go, day, save and close, update schema because we updated this. Alright, remember our report created an error. Let's see what it does now. If we designed it correctly, we do not get an error. Let me show you the grid first. It'll take a little bit longer. It's expected because it has a lot of days in this case. Alrighty. So here we see for each month, for every day in that month, it repeated the same revenue target that was associated with that month. So it took the month value for revenue target and it just displayed it on a daily basis. Okay? Simple. It allowed it to work. It's not computing at the day level. It's computing at the month level but displaying at the day level as well and preventing that error from happening. Okay? However, what if somebody said, well really, when I extend it to day, I don't want it to display the same. I wanted to divide, or I don't know, some formula. Let's see, let's keep going with next. So here I specify and I say, well, I actually want you to do something more. I want you to take the, and in this case, the revenue target, but I want you to divide it by 30. Let's validate, make sure that target, so it didn't understand my revenue target. There we go. Target. Okay. Oops. See what's going on here. Say, oh, okay. The square brackets. Revenue target. There we go. So because there's a space, I had to put the square brackets to identify my object. Okay. Finish. Save and close. See, because I had a space here, I had to use the square brackets. Just easy to make those kind of mistakes. Just be careful. Remember, we're going to update the schema, and if I created it correctly, we should see something a little bit more than our repeating the same value at the month level or day level. What is it going to do for us? Let's see. Hopefully the number would be divided by 30. Alright, sweet. So instead of having that huge number, now we just said, okay, at the day level I want you to display what you displayed at the month level, but in this case I said divide it by 30. This is hypothetical. You might have a more advanced formula than what I created, but this is just a good example. So now when I draw day off, you should see it roll up to the monthly level, and when I put day back, it divides the value by 30 for each month. Okay, for each month it takes the month value and divided by 30. So here we create an extension and we create an expression with the extension or the default extension. There's one thing left with extension to talk about. Let me show you what it is. It's the extension without degradation. So let me delete this guy and create a new one. We're not going to go into too much over this, but it's because it's the same concept. So instead here I want to say month to item instead. So what am I doing? I'm saying, okay, I want to extend month to item. So when I see item next to month for a fact that doesn't have an item level, I want you to do something special with it. So in this case, I want to extend it to item, and then I can either specify the relationship using a fact, a table, or a fact, okay, or perform a cross join. I can tell it to do whichever one. If I choose this one by the table, it means I want to tell it, okay, when I want you to extend to the item based on this table. So I want you to go to this table to pick up the items associated with that month, and then I either let you dynamically select the attribute to join on, or no, join on where item equals item, or where item and month equals item and month. Okay, this is the join part. This is the fact. Okay, so this comes into the from, and this comes into the join. So here we're really manipulating SQL very specifically. You got to know what you're doing. You can create tons of errors here if your fact table does not have, in this case I know it has item and month in it, and I only want to join it by item or my item and month, etc. And then I want to extend it to children or not extend it to children. Okay, let's use dynamically, see what happens. I can also add expression. Okay, so I'm extending the item, etc. So I'm extending this fact to the item level. Finish. This might not work because I'm not sure what this table has, so I'm just gonna, for kicks, I'm gonna throw it on there and we can diagnose it later. So I'm gonna save and close. I'm gonna edit. Now remember, this is not gonna run until I update the schema. So update the schema. And if I try to run this report now, it's going to give me an error because it still has day on it, and we removed that extension today, so got to get rid of the day first before this will run. Just make sure it's running. Alright, our simple. Let's go and add item. It's a product. Let's add item. This might give me an error, by the way, if the extension was invalid. Okay, and it did not, which means the table. So let's see what it happened. It said select month, select item, and select the revenue target from this table and this table and this table where the ID equals the ID and the item equals the item, group by month. So what we did is we extended it. We didn't put an expression, so if we don't put an expression, what do we expect? Let's see. Show you once it comes back. It might take a little bit long because depending on the number of items at a month, we don't have filters on this report, so without filters we can expect it to run out quite a while. So that was a mistake on my behalf, but let's give it a second. If it doesn't, we'll cancel it and we'll add a filter. So give it one more second. And just while this is running, I can tell you, you saw the other option where you can prevent cross, or you can enforce a cross join, where you can say, well, don't use joins when you see this degradation or this fact extension, just go and create a cross join. So here you see, here's the items next to the month. Now it's allowed because of an extension. Otherwise, revenue target will give you an error when you put an item on the template. And we didn't put an expression, a custom, so it's returning the revenue target at the month level. So this value is at the month level, has nothing to do with the item. It's just for display. It's shown on the same level, but at least it's letting you do that. It's letting you bring item. If you didn't have that extension, it'll give you an error and say, I can't have item on this report because I don't operate, the revenue target doesn't operate at this level. Okay, so hopefully you appreciated this demo about fact and facts extension, and you can utilize them in your future reports. Thank you.